just wanted to show off that we have a backstage. That was just wanted to show off to my friends here.
It's delightful.
That goes into an alley. He's lying.
Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for spending your time to listen to us talk about words instead of playing board games. You've made a choice. I cannot speak to its quality, but you're here. If folks don't know us, we should introduce ourselves quickly. I'm Nels Anderson.
Sorry, that's a habit.
That's it? Oh God, no, we should do it. I'm Nels Anderson.
And I'm Jesse Turner.
And I'm Quentin Smith.
And Jesse and I run a podcast, past tense, called Terminal 7, which was all about in 8 days, deceased card game Netrunner, R.I.P.
Boo.
Boo. Sorry. So, in the spirit of that, we just kind of want to chat about, and we'll start obviously talking about Netrunner. We'll do a quick show of hands. How many people here have ever actually played Netrunner? Oh God, it's the best people in the whole hall are in this room. Soft room, pseudo room. But then also, I think it'd be interesting to talk about just when games and things end in general, right? Because I don't know, RPG campaigns and just people in your gaming group move away and stuff.
It's something that all board gamers are familiar with and
isn't
really discussed.
Yeah, because it's
because it's a bummer.
We'll get into it. But first, because Jesse and I talked about this on the podcast a little bit, but I want your take, Mr. Smith. How do you feel about Netrunner being over, son?
Oh, man. I think it's fair to say that I have heard rumors about why the game was discontinued, and those are the things that make me sad. Because at the end of the day, it's a product, right? It is a business, and, it's good for things to have finales and endings, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring to this discussion, especially role-playing groups and stuff, but for a game to be discontinued so, ignominiously, when there is a new designer just put on the project, and these are the things that make me really sad.
Interesting.
It's the people behind the project not having an opportunity to say goodbye.
Huh.
Because, it was, Reddit's Netrunner board was just, the saddest thing, because it was, that day, it's, 30 new threads from people being like, what do you think of my deck? And someone posted going, Netrunner's over. It was shocking and horrible, and no one had any inkling that it was coming, because they had just rebooted the core set. They had future-proofed all kinds of stuff. So it was that was what felt like a slap in the face to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What was your take, Jesse? Not to say recap an hour of podcast, but
I was just really upset that I was really, really, really enjoying the game at that point. It felt like it was in a really, really fun place, a really good place. So I guess that's the best time to die is when you're looking your best.
Leave a sexy corpse.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually true though. That's the thing that bums me out less is that there's kind of two ways. I guess it's some perfect world, Phoenix supernova version, but basically these games end in one of two ways, right? Either there's some weird, unexpected corporate boardroom thing that makes it dead, or it's just that kind of fewer people are playing it, and then they're oh, we'll stop doing small expansions, we'll only do big box expansions, and then they're oh, we'll only have one organized play thing and then it's just kind of gone.
When I worked on magazines, the death knell of a magazine, when it's not got long. Magazines usually have spines, it's like a three-dimensional object, but the moment you go down to a staple, and so there's this thing of have you heard N-Power? They're a staple now. It's the equivalent of seeing an elderly relative, and it's oh, you haven't been eating.
Hey, Quins, what's the last hurrah or of a magazine? What's the last celebration thing you can do with a magazine?
But that is a celebration, right? That's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that because the nice thing about magazines is you tend to know your final issue, and that gives the staff an opportunity to go nuts and to really play around and say goodbye, and that often it'll go out to all of your subscribers, so you have that opportunity for a goodbye.
Right.
And that's sort of, I guess, what I wanted to bring to the discussion today in general, is how, as gamers, we can say goodbye to things, and it's not, but we tend not to.
Right.
But some of the, not to foreshadow too much, but some of the role-playing games that are newer and more modern often try and facilitate that into the structure of the game, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. It felt like that, at least there was some amount of notice with Netrunner, so I was not able to go to the final Worlds this year, nor were you, but Jesse went.
Yeah.
So what was the tenor? Was it a sad funeral time?
I think actually the game is so much fun that nobody was really glum, but there was a few people that were like, boo, like really like kind of
Wait, how are they?
boo. They're really grouchy. And when I sat down and one was beside me and he was just like, I think that for a few people it really hurt because the game's so good. And the thing is like it's not like they even dropped a huge amount of money on the game.
Yeah.
In comparison to a lot of the things.
Almost anything else you could do with your life.
yeah. But it seemed like it was really positive. Everybody was the games were too good, and everybody's just having too good of a time. Cheers everywhere. Good players, good games. Yeah, it was a really good. That felt to me like a send off because after it felt a little bit like, what am I gonna do with like this gaming hole in my life now?
Right.
Maybe pick up a language or something.
Needlepoint.
Yeah.
I mean,
Scrimshaw.
I think maybe that's one of the reasons that it hurts so much with Netrunner is, I love board games, but if they discontinue support for most board games, then I can play another one. I like role-playing games, but I can always play new role-playing games. Even massively multiplayer games, you can try and take a community with you. But what made Netrunner special is it wasn't the people that played normal card games,
Yeah.
You go to a Netrunner, I mean, like, even the makeup of this audience is like not the sort of people you might expect to see at a Magic the Gathering tournament. It's more diverse, or it's, older, or, it's Netrunner was
assholes.
I wasn't going to say it, but
No,
That's
Yeah.
why I did.
Nels, there's a mute button on these microphones.
less assholes, yeah. But there is no other card game. Like Netrunner is the only card game I've played remotely seriously because
same. Yeah, in a
because
big way.
right, and you and I both care about game design so much, and it's because the at the table play was so good, the universe was interesting, the pairing of themes and mechanics was so strong. There is no other card game. Like me playing less Netrunner just means that I now play more board games,
Right.
and you can't take that community with you.
Yeah.
So I think it's uniquely sad because, because if a massively multiplayer online game ends, you can go and play a game that's very different, but ultimately it will fill your time in the same way. Not
Right.
always, but it's half true, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Interesting. Was there, I guess, have you all been through something like this with other tabletop games? Leaving out RPGs for a second, because that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Because I certainly have not.
I think, Quinn's, you must have seen more game deaths than me and Nels combined.
No.
Or at least be aware of them.
No, I was only ever the things I liked as a kid were just like the intellectual properties that had too much money behind them to disappear. Like, Games Workshop just exists and there is no removing it.
The sun burns out before GW goes away.
Yeah, in the grim darkness of the future, there is only what remains of like
Games Workshop.
Yeah. So no, it just stuck with me. Whereas Netrunner felt like kind of fragile. I mean, frankly, like I guess the thing about Netrunner is it should never have existed in the first place. Like,
I guess that's kind of true.
In that, because there has never been a card game quite like that with a business model that was so friendly, with a
Right.
community that was so nice.
Well, it's kind of weird because like it got pulled back from the brink once already, right?
Yeah.
Like the weird '90s version that didn't quite work. What was sort of interesting.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Mumbad cycle.
Oh!
Wow. Dunking on the Mumbad cycle.
I mean, not wrong though. Yeah, no. Yeah, I was certainly bummed, I suppose, but it didn't. It was nice in that like the game went out at such a good place. Like it didn't go out with a bunch of people being like in the middle of Mumbad or whatever when lots of people were really down on it, right? Like,
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where it's like if it's gotta go, well, I'd rather go when it's awesome.
Yeah, I
versus
agree.
Like when it's sad or when it just sort of peters out into sad nothingness.
I guess it's
dust.
like there's one sad thing but two happy things. The sad thing being it ended. The good thing being it existed in the first place, which I think we can
Right.
all agree is amazing. But also, like you say, it went out on a high. Like the whole of Netrunner basically is just a good experience. I mean, it would be silly not to mention the fact that I got a tattoo of, like the Netrunner, the link symbol, right?
So
But like,
the question is literally, do I try to come up with something better than that, or do I just also get one of
I
those?
thought a few people in the Netrunner industry, the Netrunner community had got these. I know a friend of mine, Ben Kutcher, got one. My wife got one, and then I heard, and my friend Tim Anderson, who was the DJ at my Netrunner tournaments. So like I think
the real life DJ Fenris.
yes, who then had the coolest day of any Netrunner's career of taking there was one of my tournaments he didn't DJ at, and he actually played, he took the tournament and then went back to DJing, which was like the sickest thing that like.
Yeah, that's pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, he got a link symbol. So yeah, no, I mean
Okay.
we only got that just as friends, but it was really funny to find out that other members of the Netrunner community had gotten exactly the same symbol, and the vague thing being like, we're all still linked by the experience that we
Linked.
had. You right? Someone groaned in the audience, and they're correct to groan. Right? But like, you know, it is. The reason I got the tattoo is the same reason I got like other tattoos of mine, which is that yes, the game is dead, but no one can ever take away the experience that I had at the time.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's a celebration of. It's not really
Totally.
a celebration of Netrunner, but of the times we had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's ultimately the thing that I find, right, is that, like, you know, in the entire scope of the book that is games that have existed in my life, like, Netrunner is only going to be a chapter, and it doesn't need to be the whole book, and that's fine, right? It was just like one really, really good chapter, and then we got to the end of the chapter, and it's like, okay, we'll find something else. And I think that, like, often when these things end, you kind of feel this urge to be like, okay, well, what's the next thing to, like, put in there instead, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you don't. No, it's not really necessarily how, like, those moments, those experiences need to work, right? Like,
So what are you two filling your time? Like, yeah, the proof being, I'm sure you two don't have like a massive Netrunner-shaped hole in your life. You've just found other things to do. Is that right?
my job.
I actually have to say, when I was at Worlds with an Airbnb with about 9 people, constantly talking about Netrunner, and a lot of times right before the Worlds, you even signed up your deck. Everybody's still staying up till like the last possible minute to submit their decks. One of my friends, one of our players around here, Ian Smith, said the reward for Netrunner is playing. No, the reward for Netrunner is talking about. Sorry, I gotta get this right. The reward for Netrunner is talking about Netrunner.
Yeah.
Like playing Netrunner is the reward for that is just talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most fun game to talk about.
I think
like,
that was
bar none.
The article you illustrated, of course, that Lee and I wrote. I
Right.
think like that had a paragraph in it of like the real reward of Netrunner is feeling that you've learned a language and that you're talking to people, and
Yeah.
you know, and I guess, yeah, the game is dead, but no one can take that language away. No one can take the sort of community away. I mean, in a very real way, they can.
Yes.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's unusual, right?
Yeah.
It was a bubble that sort of it appeared unexpectedly and it went away unexpectedly. So, but it was there and solid for like what, 5 years or something?
Yeah, I think it was 6. There's this fantastic book that, despite the grandiosity of its title, actually makes good on it. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by this Japanese lady named Marie Kondo. And it's just like 120 pages that's ostensibly about like how to keep your house tidy. But it's actually like maybe one of the most impactful books I've ever read in my entire life.
Really? Well, should we get that name again slowly for people
The
watching the video?
Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Yeah, and it's bloody incredible because, I mean, obviously there's some of it about just like, here's how you organize your clothes to make the most use of space. But a lot of it is about like, you know, the things you choose to have in your life and how it's actually a deliberate choice that you should make. Kind of the thing that people heard is like, if you have something in your life that isn't giving you joy, why is it there? And like, you should not own anything that doesn't bring you joy, right?
Yeah.
And there are things that like they may have at one point and they no longer, and you can just get rid of them and that's fine. Like, you can appreciate everything it did for you while you had it, and then it's gone. But that it being gone doesn't take away all the stuff it did for you at the time. And that's 100% how I feel about Netrunner, where it's like, you know, it's gone now, effectively. But it did a bunch of very wonderful, important things for me during this time, and I really appreciate that. And that's the important part, not, I don't know, feeling maudlin or whatever about the fact that it's disappeared.
Yeah, here's a weird thing though, as far as, like, to carry on from your point. I love books, and I read books, and I collect books, and I love having a bookshelf, like, in the, like, front and center of my flat, which has all the books I've read, and that's great. Since Netrunner's ended, I feel that my Netrunner cards are like a lodestone around my neck, and I don't know what to do because I don't really want them in my house, and I can't get rid of them.
Yep.
Do you have the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Ah, that's interesting. Why do we want to get rid of them? It's like a reminder of a place you can't go back to, right? It's like having like the clothes of an ex or something in the house.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I mean, is that? I didn't realize that. I mean, it's the thing. That's the closest analogy I can come up with. You see it and you're like, it doesn't feel good to have it there, and it takes up space. But I don't know how to tidy up my Netrunner collection because I spent it's like £600 or something.
Yeah, I don't know. So have to figure it out.
Do you still have them?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I still brought some in my bag. We're still playing this weekend. We're not done yet.
Right.
So is there, in terms of other games that, or collections of people or times or experiences doing game stuff or whatever that's ended, have there been any that were like particularly poignant for y'all?
I think with the getting involved in like massively multiplayer online situations, that's the only time I've really kind of experienced like death. And in the year 2007, I think it was the year of the failed MMO. And that was really fascinating to me because
Oh God, that was the worst.
every company was trying to make a WoW killer or whatever they were doing. And then whenever they would make one, everybody would go there, but the developers were not aware of just how people crush those games, how fast they do it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this should be good for about a year, and in like a month and a half, they're at endgame and they've killed the last boss a million times. They've exploited everything, and they're screaming at the developers. So the developer just dies on the spot. It isn't
Literally murdered.
Yeah, it literally just
turns into a pile of ash.
And that happened a lot. So you were getting like these really quick, hilarious flash in the pan deaths. Not like a slow petering out, like you said before, but just like this quick pull the plug now because we cannot keep up with these amount of people, this amount of like passion, because gamers are like really, really passionate. You can see that the way they talk about, treating players fairly and stuff. They get really, really passionate about it. So I think in video games, I've seen the death happen more, and in something that's analog like this, that happens in a really strange way. Because like I'll still go to the pub now and we'll still play Netrunner, and there's still a group of grassroots people doing the Nisei thing, still involved in printing out cards and doing rulings and doing more support. And so yeah, I think the only times I've really experienced it is through like gaming, and that's probably just my background.
Digital games.
And like digital games.
Right.
But never an analog game. I just stopped being able to afford playing Magic, and I stopped. But then like BattleTech came out, and it was always a new thing, and then you drop your meager amounts of money on it, and you're like, oh, no one's playing this, and it's always you have to just play what your friends are playing, regardless if you like the game or not. If you want people to play with, and you're not playing a solitary experience, you need to actually just double down and be like, I guess I'm a wizard now, and then just go that way.
Have you ever been at playing an MMO like when the world actually ended?
No, have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I've heard amazing stories like
Correct,
that.
yeah.
When people actually when a server goes down, they actually buy the big server board, and they like.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
they get
whoa,
like
what?
Yeah, it's super super crazy. But they actually buy the server board, so there's something physical because we all want something physical, right?
Yeah.
We all actually do want that. All your crazy experience of spending all these hours investing yourself in this game, you want something like. I don't know, that means something. So when you're like old and super delirious and crazy, you can like touch it and it like reactivates your brain. I'm pretty sure that's
how that works.
That's
for sure.
that's how it. Yeah.
No, I mean there's something interesting about having like, I guess it's a memento really.
Yeah,
so
memento,
one thing
yeah.
that we've already thinking.
Yeah.
One thing we started doing at the end of all of our tabletop games, because the same crew of folks that I have here in town who we played like tabletop RPGs with, God, for like, what year is it? 2018? Oh God, like easily 9 or 10 years now.
Yeah.
And a few people, like one dude moved to Toronto. Another one of our good buddies, he's actually moving to Spain on literally Monday.
Okay.
And it's like we've been playing games for like a decade, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna miss you, Brian. He'd be here right now, but he's actually at a wedding, but he'll be around tomorrow.
Okay,
if any
cool.
of you guys are actually from Spain, come find me, because my buddy Brian wants to find people to play games with over there.
Give it up for Spain? Nobody?
Barcelona.
Nobody. All right.
But the thing that I've started doing at the end of our games is like making or having something for everybody who's in the game.
To take away.
Yeah. So the last thing we ran through Curse of Strahd over like, oh God, I don't know, almost a year probably. And I purchased an actual tarot deck and then used it as a prop like during the game. And then at the end of the entire campaign, I gave everyone one tarot card that was
Nice.
like the most resemblant thing to their character. So it's like, oh, here's something physical that you can have. It's like a little memento nostalgia object that kind
Yeah.
of represents all of our time together. Like, dropping fucking like almost like 50 evenings together just on this one thing.
Yeah.
It's like having something to do with that.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Like when
It's delightful.
Yeah, and when I finished my Blades in the Dark campaign, I had this fun thing where an artist friend of mine, Tom Humberstone actually, who illustrated our Cards Against Humanity review. But at the end of Blades, they do the final heist at the end of season 1, And as they're walking home, it's like, oh, there's wanted posters of your gang everywhere. And they're all like, what? Because they're not supposed to know what they look like. But then I actually produced the wanted poster, which had illustrations of all of their characters and all the copywriting, which is cool.
Good.
It was great. And then it's a memento. But the thing but like, why is this good? But then you and I caused like actual grief by our Netrunner cards, and we're like, we don't want this collection around. I think that's interesting, but I think the reason why is there is a difference between a memento and what I have with my Netrunner cards, which is sleeves, cards in binders, unopened data packs, and it's like, that's not a memento, that's like the tool.
Baggage.
Yeah, it's I can't access that anymore. I can access a memento because a memento is you look at something and go, those are the days. But my Netrunner cards, I look at them and I'm like, I can't connect with this thing anymore. I can't turn these cards into a deck. I can't organize that. You know, it's like, is this making sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Is there other things that you've done to like cap off? I mean, I don't know if anything's going to top custom-made wanted posters.
That was cool. But no, this is one of the things I wanted to say, actually, when we sat down to have this discussion. A lot of modern RPGs do this thing which I find really interesting, whereby, who here has played a pen and paper role-playing game? Hands up? That's most of you. So actually, keep your hands up. Now, I would like you to keep your hands up if that pen and paper role-playing campaign ended in a way that was satisfying.
Hey.
A third-ish.
Oh, I think, no, that's maybe 15, 10%.
Okay.
But okay, thank you very much. But I think like with new modern RPGs, the thing I find fascinating is that a lot of them are designed with this problem in mind. It's exactly the kind of thing that D&D doesn't do.
Right.
And it's why I think people should play other RPGs, because like what I find great is games like Blades or Monster Hearts suggest that you arrange sessions in seasons. So that doesn't really mean anything. It just means that as a GM, you tell the players, oh, we're going to do 4 sessions, and then the 4th session will be like kind of a finale. But when you tell players that, they try and wrap up their characters, or they try and do big things. If my character's in love with yours, then maybe in the finale I'm like, I mentioned that, and it's like, oh. And you can frame that a bit more like a TV series. But what that means is that after a finale, it's the game going, and you can stop now and it's good.
Yeah, totally, right?
As opposed to every D&D campaign ever where you just kind of, Steve couldn't make it, and then Peter...
And the next week, Laura's away.
Yeah,
and then Christmas happened.
And then you never actually fought the dragon. And it's like, for the rest of your life, you're going, we never fought the dragon.
They're still stuck in that goddamn cave, huh?
Exactly. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so good when MMOs do that end of a world event, because MMOs are designed by their nature to never give you closure, which means 99.9% of anyone who's ever played an MMO ends in a really dissatisfied way where you just kind of lose interest.
Yeah.
So now
Or you do what I did and you sell your account to some dude in Florida for $900.
$900! That's rich.
It was pretty good.
That's great, actually.
Bless you, Florida, Jacksonville man.
But I guess what I'm kind of coming around on your idea now that it's actually really good that Netrunner ended in a good way.
Yeah, right? I don't know. I think that like one of the most interesting and certainly satisfying tabletop games I've ever played was a Primetime Adventures, which itself is like a really generic, like it's more like a foundation than an actual game. It's kind of like, it's basically like an HBO drama. Here's some rough like conflict resolution mechanics, but what the game is literally just whatever you want. But the game...
You play it like a TV series,
Exactly.
Right?
But because it is like a TV series, it basically says, okay, here's how you can do, here's the structure for a 5-episode season, or here's 7, or here's 9. But from the outset, it says, this is what you're going to do. And the fact that just like that mild structure, I don't know how this occurs. And not to like dog on the people I played tabletop games with, they're amazing, but I'm kind of the only one who's like in a creative profession, right? The other ones are like, it's like a teacher and a psychologist, and actually 2 teachers. So it's like, they're not people who fundamentally like tell stories and do creative stuff for a living, but just like that thin amount of structure and lattice work just has the most amazing impact in terms of like building toward a thing that's feels like it's not going to come together. It's like, what is this roughshod, ramshackle bullshit? And then the last 2 episodes, you're like, how did we do this? This was amazing.
This was beautiful.
Yeah. It's so I think there's actually like a very poignant object lesson there, and like building toward an ending is not something to be avoided, but like something to be embraced.
Yes, I agree. I mean, like, but also it's anti-capitalist, right? Because you're telling people this finishes, it has an ending. there's been an interesting wave of legacy board games where all the legacy board games that have come out, like there was Pandemic Legacy, obviously, which is great, and Risk Legacy, which is good. But then ever since then, everyone who tries to copy that, oh, you're going to play 10, 12, 15 games, it's too many. Like,
Right.
and it's just people aping that because apparently it was what worked. But now, I mean, just looking at the games that are on the horizon, you've got things like Gen 7 by Plaid Hat.
yeah.
There's a couple of other people. There's a sort of, this next wave of legacy games is like what's called mini campaigns. I think Blackout, which just got announced, Hong Kong Blackout, whatever it's called, by Alexander Pfister. But again, that's like a very small campaign. I think it's people realizing that, like, oh, you know what? Let's just have like 4 or 5 games you tie together, and that's enough. But it's not what people assume they want. You know, they assume they want big things, grand things, but actually, endings are good, short things are good. You know,
Yeah.
This is slightly directionless. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But yes, I think it's difficult to get game designers to sell a product with an end. It's not what consumers think they want,
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you ever run with like a tabletop group where you were like
Sure,
deliberately building toward a thing being over?
No,
or
I
anything like
think
that?
it's just you don't want it to end because you're like, I like my guy, you like your guy, we like what our guys do together, like that's really fun, and
Right.
why would you want to end it? But you're right, it does end up being like when you're really young and you go to a buffet for the first time in your life, and you're like, yeah, like you're gonna eat all that? You're like, yeah, I'm gonna eat all this.
You mean really young? You mean like literally?
I mean, like
today.
yesterday. I mean, like when you're a day young, you're like, yeah, I can eat all this fried chicken. And then you go back and you load up and you come back and there's this plate that's full of stuff. And you're like, you actually didn't eat all that. You're right. You could have just went up once or ordered something off menu. But no, you want the buffet because you want this selection. You want the idea that your character can live forever. I actually remember getting involved in Rifts, which is pretty old school.
Oh man, hell yeah, son.
Yeah, big Rifts fans. All right. But I remember someone wanted to play a juicer, which is a character that basically is just chemically jacked up and can like throw cars at people, which is pretty cool. But it says that after 5 years, their body literally burns out. Like, they
Yeah.
just do. So, I don't know, you probably put your brain in a robot at that time or whatever you do.
Correct.
But just the idea of the fact that his character couldn't live for 5 more years after the game was over, if he was involved in it or not, totally turned him off the idea. Just the idea of being that.
Interesting.
So it is so strange. It's definitely not what we don't need. Like, while we want to live forever, we want to play forever, but the endings are what really kind of, it's got to be the most difficult thing to work with because, again, this people need to make money to keep these things going, and if you sell a game that you got to give a Viking funeral after the first play session, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, though.
But it's just not feasible. I think the profit margins on all the things that we're interested in are pretty razor thin when it comes to like analog tabletops.
It's there's the best role-playing quote I've heard is like, I think it's Avery McDowell saying, she says in Monster Hearts, play your character like you're driving a stolen car.
That's pretty good.
Which just means like, yeah, throw them around, get hurt, trash them, like, put them in places where they get hurt, and that is the best tip for like, yes, your character might die, but like, I think everyone falls into the same trap of role-playing where their character's quite stiff and they don't want anything to happen to them, and then
Yeah.
nothing interesting ever happens to them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you play a role-playing character who just throws themselves into trouble, gets hurt, gets wounded, loses limbs, like it's so much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Probably they won't die. Probably you're not going to run out of character. Humans and characters in games are resilient.
I mean, do you think the inverse of that, where something like, was it 8 candles, 10 candles?
Oh,
What's the
10
number of
10 candles
10
where you're
candles.
going to die.
Where
at
you
the
know
end.
everyone's going to eat it. Do you think that the fact that there's a very, very specific and discrete ending built in, do you think that it might end up being like kind of freeing?
It can be, but I think the best solution is something in the middle, is the idea that there is a finale every few sessions, and then there may or may not be more game after that.
Right.
It's like, there's a story I tell a fair bit about the video game Sunless Sea,
Yeah.
which is a game where you can die, but you can make choices that kill your character. And as you're exploring the world, you'll find all kinds of stuff. Like there's an island that's so covered in spiders. It's got this lovely descriptive line that you approach, and it sounds like pebbles being washed up on a beach by the sea. But then you realize it's just the sound of spiders' legs on the stones. But yeah, it's lovely. But you can arrive, and there's all these conversation options to like hang out with the spiders and do. And sort of like become their servant, and the game hints with all the copywriting is like, you're going to die if you choose this. The spiders will pick out your eyes and use you as a blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I had a character where...
As a blah, blah, blah?
Sorry. You can fill in the rest with your imagination. But I had a character who I was kind of done with, but I thought, I'm just going to follow this thread because it works for the character. Follow this thread, spiders. It's like there's a pun there. But what happened is, due to a series of unlikely skill checks, I threw myself into this like suicide, but my character actually survived. And came out the other end with this amazing story. But
as the Spider King.
Basically. But what was amazing about that was what happened to me emotionally after that. Because that character, and to me and within that character's mind, was already dead. So when you emerge from that environment, it's like, oh, any life I have beyond this point is like gravy. I should have died days ago. Which meant that character suddenly went through this amazing change of like, now I just do anything and don't care about anyone and just absolutely devil may care. And they were so much more interesting. And then they died. But like, there was that lovely window where they just didn't have anything to live for anymore. But it was among the most fascinating role-playing experiences I've ever had.
I can't imagine anyone has ever described having nothing left to live for as a, quote, lovely window. But go on.
No, that's just about it. So I have a question to take this back to Netrunner.
Yeah.
So, because this is quite likely, how will you guys feel if another publisher brings Netrunner back?
Back?
And in what format? Like, what if it comes back as a CCG? What if it comes back with because Netrunner obviously is not tied to the Android universe, which is still owned by Fantasy Flight.
Yeah.
Now Netrunner has returned to Wizards. That would mean that Netrunner, if it came back, wouldn't have, for example, as diverse a universe. You'd have a lot more like straight white cis male. It would look more like CD Projekt's Cyberpunk game, right? Which is already people are looking at it and going, this looks kind of problematic because Cyberpunk means something very different now to what it used to in the 80s. So how do we feel as like, we're talking about the death of Netrunner, but it's not actually dead. It might come back in a completely different format. Is that like, will it even be the same game to you guys?
No, I mean, it certainly wouldn't. I don't know. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, I think what I thought about this when we were talking about the tabletop and analogies are always really good about how your attachment with the characters. But in Netrunner, we played a lot of people and a lot of corporations. We played a lot of things in that, and I think to lose that world that we built in our heads of like, oh yeah, Noise is this like little scummy dirtbag that's trashing all the corp stuff and going through their garbage. Like we actually lose a lot of the character we had, and all we'll have left is mechanics. The thing is though, the mechanics are like really, really good.
I know, right?
They're like really good. So, but if you just reskin this game, would people still pick it up? That's a good question. Because mechanically, it is great. It is really fun. It is. The game's coming down to a side game or an access or a Hail Mary run or 2 access on the R&D. Those things are very Netrunner, and people only know that I'm talking about that because of the people in the room, of course. But mechanically, if it's anything else, if it's in any other setting, would I still like it? Because I don't really like Cyberpunk that much at all. Like in just me personally. And it was just the mechanics that I fell for. And then I got tied in, and then I got caught up. But I think I need the whole package, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I would make the conscious decision not to go ham on it, partially because it's like, I think part of the satisfaction for Netrunner, for me, beyond just it being a very good game played by a bunch of really awesome people, is that it was really nice to go deep on one of those once. But it's like, I've also kind of done it. Like, I mean, I remember I'm going to get really good at Street Fighter exercise, but I don't know if you're champing at the bit to do that for, it's not King of Monsters. What is it, King of Fighters?
Oh, King of Fighters. Yeah,
there
King of Fighters.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch.
Sure.
But, I mean, I didn't even manage to get that deep into Street Fighter because, like, so much of this is down to the community. It's down to, and I like the Street Fighter community, but you need such a perfect storm to really go deep in something. And I think maybe that's what was magical about Netrunner is that most people in this room, I would guess, haven't ever gone deep on a card game before. And yet it was just this, it was like the setting and the community and the game all came together to draw us in. And it's almost like now the game's gone, we're like waking up from a dream where it's like, because I can never imagine being a person who goes into card games that deep.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't before. I might never again.
Yeah, totally.
So what the heck happened for the last like 5 years? Right?
Where's all this cardboard in my house?
And then talking about getting rid of it, like
yeah.
It's a weird, yeah, that's odd.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like probably as a curiosity, if someone else bought one of the sets, I'd be like, give me a taste.
Yeah, I'll try this. No, this isn't as good as...
Yeah, but I don't think because it's just like, I don't think looking to recreate all the experiences that it contained is really like a useful exercise, right? I mean, maybe this is just how I'm sort of wired, but I'd much rather find something else.
Something completely different.
Something completely different, something else novel, interesting than always being to like try to chase the dragon. Because it's like, what is it going to be better? Probably not, right? Just for like myriad reasons, it's probably not going to be better both as a game, and as a community, and just as a thing that existed in my life, and blah 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 blah. So it's like the best you could hope for is like it would be just as good as it was before.
And that's just bizarre. It'd be just as
Right?
good, but the community would be completely different.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I'd just rather find something else to fill my life with instead, right? Like maybe it's other different board games, or maybe it's more online games, or maybe it's getting another tabletop crew together or something, right? Versus just like trying to chase the dragon on getting back that thing again. Like, it's fine with it. I don't know. I'm fine with it being over.
Is that the bizarre conclusion? It's just that, yeah, we're fine with it ending. Are we being released to go back and play other games? Because that's the classic thing when someone, like Netrunner impacted my ability to do my job. Because I was playing so much Netrunner that I was playtesting less board games.
Right.
So have we been unshackled from playing this one game?
I mean, kind of.
Did you start like phoning it in, Quinns, or what?
Yes, I did. There's a series of reviews for about 2 years where I didn't even play the games that I was.
You're like,
You heard it here first, folks.
Like, the box art is great on this one, guys.
I guess the manual looks good. Shut up and
Arkham
sit-
Horror is actually super fun.
There you go.
It's not.
It's not. As a new edition, I think, to be playtested here.
Oh,
You can try it.
you gonna play that?
Nope.
Well,
It's so are we all? Is that the conclusion of this then? That we are fine with it being over?
I mean, I'm fine with an excellent thing being over, right? Like, it's like how my buddy is moving to Spain, and it's like,
I would not be fine with that. I would be like,
I mean, you're
calling
staying
in a
here.
bomb threat on his plane. And
remind me never to move and let you know about it. Yeah, just because it's like, all the time and moments that we shared together, like that stuff can't be taken away, right? And like, yeah, it would be nice if that thing continued on in perpetuity, but there could be other stuff to fill that with too, and it's okay.
other board games. Turns out board games are pretty good.
Turns out there's a lot of them.
I think the thing that I'm going to miss the most about it, though, is that Netrunner gave me a time to play with other people a lot. Like, I know you have your gaming group, but some of the people I played at Worlds, it was so great. There was one person who was confident that my friendliness was trying to psych him out. Which was really, really, really great, because I'd be playing him, and I'm like, I was playing next, and I drew no ice, so it's going to be a miserable game for me, so I'm kind of just making fun of myself the whole time. And I'm trying to joke with him and be quite cordial, and he kept being like, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, you're trying to psych me out. I'm like, what? No, I'm not trying to psych you out. No, I'm not.
Did he think you were playing a secret kill deck or something out of next?
I guess, like, I'm not playing any cards. I'm clicking to draw credits. I'm doing these like bad moves, and he's like, okay, this guy's got me. Like, he's really figured it out. And
No one could possibly be doing this on purpose.
that was exactly it. And I don't have that experience with playing with my friends that I know very well, which of course I love playing with my friends I know very well.
Right.
I ran into another person who was, I somehow convinced he thought I had something in my hand, and it was his last turn, and I had the win. And so he ran at my really destructive ice, and he's like, let it all fire. And I'm like, okay. So it was a Fairchild 3, so that means he blows up stuff, but then I make the decision to zap his brain or let him through to a hand with nothing in it. So I'm like, well, will I stop you? And so he's like, okay, I do it again. And I was like, oh, you bounce, I stop you again. He's trashing all his cards. And then on his third one, he made it really, really, like really dramatic. He's like, one more time. Well, you're bouncing. And he's like, that's all I needed to know. And he plays this card to bypass the ice to get in. And to my hand with absolute garbage. And just like, I can't do that with people I've known forever at all. But I can get these great stories and these great moments because that game makes you play everyone, makes you play with everybody, and everybody's.
That's the thing. What you miss is that with Netrunner, you are actually playing, like in the true sense of the word. You're at play. Like you're really. You can sit down with a. I think I might have told this story on Terminal 7 before, but a friend of mine who I used to work with played a lot of Magic. And I was like, oh, why do you play Magic? And he's like, well, I like to sit down with someone from across the table, shake their hand, and then just like whip the hell out of them and like dismantle them, really take them apart. And that was never really what Netrunner was about for me. You sit down with someone and you play with them.
Yeah.
The moments of, I remember when I went to Worlds, this is slightly catty, and again, I can't remember if I've told this story before, but at Worlds you play
Slightly
game
catty, I love it. Go on.
but you play game after game after game with all these interesting and wonderful people like Jesse's describing. But my last game was with this guy, and I kind of knew that there was something a bit off because when he took out his token bag, it was chainmail. And he was sort of like not very friendly initially. Right. And then he just did everything to annoy me. He sort of cuts my deck and shuffles it, and then he's playing.
He's in there shuffling his cards.
Shuffling his hand constantly. But it just wasn't a pleasure to play against him.
Right.
And that was such a rare experience that that day of all the matches at Worlds, I was like, I really need to beat this guy. But that, I think, was what it feels like all the time. For most people who play card games, it's just raw competition. Whereas so much of Netrunner just wasn't that. You're at play, you're playing. Right. Which is so rare for a collectible card game. And that's why you'd never want to... the Shut Up and Sit Down crew are kind of divided on the playtests of Keyforge we've done, which is Fantasy Flight's new card game by Richard Garfield, of course, who designed Netrunner. Matt's kind of intro, but it feels like Hearthstone-ish, but it's just got this thing of we're not playing, we're competing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fine,
right.
But Netrunner was playful.
It was definitely, it was way more of a dance than a fist fight, right?
But a dance where people fell over constantly. And
yes, I didn't say it was a good dance.
It's
it danced like I danced, maybe that's why I liked it so much.
Like the dance where you're 5 beers deep and you just someone falls ass first into a bin.
Exactly.
At the side of the dance floor. It was a funny game.
Yeah.
So much funny stuff happens.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the things that I'll miss is that the act of playing it definitely put me in contact with a bunch of people I probably never would have met to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that part was cool. Both literally folks in the Vancouver meta, but then also even people from down in Seattle or Chris and Edie from Run Less Click.
Yeah.
And it's people who I just never would have encountered ever.
I mean, we wouldn't have become such close friends if we hadn't played Netrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nels wasn't returning any of my calls till we started playing Netrunner.
I think that's why it's fine to, it's one of the reasons it's fine to go away because it's because the friends, hang around. Mostly,
no one will take you away from me.
No one.
Or you.
No one can deny what we had together.
Yeah, I don't know. So I wonder, it's if whatever my time ends up being filled with, I do hope that it has something, can have some element of that.
I think playfulness for me and meeting people, which is really what we have here at SHUX, right? It's loads of really stupid, funny, playful games, and you can meet and make friends with people.
So you're not playing Netrunner anymore, so you just made a board game convention instead. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Everyone else should do that.
That's the answer.
You fill your life with conventions.
But in a real way, kind of, yeah. But conventions can be any size. I think it's...
Yeah, I have a convention with myself every weekend.
What I mean is that when you guys are saying but what we fill our time with that isn't Netrunner, you assume it's a card game. But actually, if you look what fills the same emotional hole, it's it's board games, and it's going to board game meetups because you play games with strangers and you play and you make mistakes, and it's silly and funny, and Netrunner probably had more in common with board games than it does other collectible card games. There's a weird...
Maybe it's speed dating. Maybe that's what you fill it with. Speed dating, Sit down, you got
Netrunner is exactly like speed dating.
We've learned so much here today.
You meet someone and it's a disaster, and then you meet someone else and it's beautiful, and then you go home and you're sad because you didn't win.
Yeah, that sounds like every tournament I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Well, not for us to flap gob the entirety of time. I don't know if any folks want to... Is this a thing... Do you want to ask us questions about this?
Questions? Maybe there's a lady here who has a question, but I wonder if people could come up and share stories of Netrunner as a weird eulogy.
That would be delightful.
Is that what you're putting on her right now?
Or other similar gamey things that have ended. We don't necessarily need to.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, that would be delightful. It looks like Jess has a mic.
Oh, lovely. If we just can we give the mic to this nice lady here?
Yeah. Feel free to ask us questions, but if anyone has any awesome stories,
we'll get this question and then we can do the.
I think it's fantastic.
Nice.
So hi, I'm Amy.
Hi, Amy.
My question is basically, are you more sad about the loss of community or the loss of new material?
Are we more sad about the loss of community or the loss of new material? this is backwards, but I'm more sad about the loss of new material, but only because
You monster.
the community stays around, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the community for me was the friends I made, which sticks around. That's why it's okay.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
new material, I want to know what they were going to design. Also, I want to see the new card art. That's what's sad.
Yeah, there's a lot of really mechanics that kept coming out. The game was constantly surprising us with new ways of playing it. It was so mechanically rich. Like the loss of material does hurt drastically. Because I guess the community doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't talk to the people that play Netrunner anymore.
Right.
It's like block them or
Although
something.
after this, Jesse, goodbye
We're off,
forever.
we're off.
I remember when Lee and I were like the most into Netrunner when they announced the Upstalk cycle. It wasn't called Upstalk. It
Lunar.
was Lunar cycle, thanks. Upstalk is weird.
How does he do that?
Upstalk was the first data pack.
Yeah, it sure was.
Nice. But yeah,
still got it.
When the Lunar thanks. When the Lunar cycle got announced, I remember going to my wife, who was just waking up in the bedroom, and she was like half asleep, and I was like, "We're going to space." She was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Look on my iPad," and it was the whole announcement article of like the space, which was like so exciting.
It was
and
cool as
interesting.
hell.
And then Mumbad, obviously going to India, like
Yeah.
so many new. But now it's like, no, it's done.
Yeah.
I of course didn't play the African cycle, which was called
Right. Kampala.
Kampala. No.
No. Katara.
Tara. This guy.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. As usual, Keith's there to save the day.
Kampala Ascendant was one of the packs. I did the exact same thing you did, but nailed it.
Right.
Yeah, if anyone has any stories or recountings, that would be a very good way to end this.
We could. The microphone is maybe being. Oh, okay, right there.
Man, thanks there, Jess.
Hi. Hi, I'm Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
It's just funny because I haven't seen Keith or you or Jesse since we used to play together in the tournaments at Starlit back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
I would never have thought myself a tournament person. I have never been to a tournament since. I've never played any other kind of card game like this. Netrunner was such a part of my life. All my online. I'm StimHack, by the way.
Oh, there we go.
All my online personas are StimHack, and no one ever gets the reference except for probably the people in this room. So I had stopped playing before the announcement, so the announcement for me was almost a relief because I felt less like a traitor for leaving the game. But I still play what I have, and I've still brought people into the world and into the game, so I think I will keep my cards.
Aw,
No,
hell yeah.
that's cool. Like becoming like a shepherd almost was actually really fun. Like getting people when you sit two people down and teach them the game, and when things start clicking, it's just like I remember that too, and you can share that experience. So
It's nuts. Just you saying like, "Oh, I'm StimHack," and then just you showed us the card there. I haven't played Netrunner in like a year, but the immediate response of remembering exactly what it feels like to play StimHack, it's like, what, 9 credits?
Oh, hell yeah, son.
9 credits, 1 brain damage, let's go!
Let's do
it. But I remember the bam of like,
Oh, yeah.
that's funny. That's such a funny emotional response from that card. I think I've killed myself with a StimHack once of like, you play the StimHack.
Was it the I need to get the access or I die?
No,
at the end
it
of
was
this?
I take net damage on this run, but it's fine because. But then obviously the card leaves your hand to play, and then after the run you take another damage.
Oh, so that one was just on you.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it
Perfect.
wasn't like it was just a miscalculation. Well, the corp has that lovely moment of being like, you finish the run, and the corp goes, you're dead now. And you're like, no.
I only had 2 points. Why did I do that?
Do we have any more stories?
else?
Oh, happy stories about now. We've got a couple there.
Spin us yarns.
What a sweet thing this is to do.
I know.
Netrunner is dead.
just pass it down.
The stories will last a lifetime.
That which is dead may never die.
Yes. Quoting
Obi-Wan
Shakespeare.
Kenobi.
Hey, I'm Jonathan.
Hey, John.
Very similar story. I haven't seen your faces since we used to play at some of the tournaments, like Magic Stronghold and stuff.
Oh, yes.
I remember a couple of
yeah.
place table games against you, Jesse.
What can I say?
Pretty classic. And I wouldn't even be here today, I think, if it wasn't for Netrunner, because I very first heard of Quinn's as a guest star on Terminal 7.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, check bills in the mail, Quinn.
I stopped playing a couple years ago as well, around like Mumbad and stuff, and have since kind of switched to board games as a whole.
What was your big switch? Like, what was the biggest thing that filled the most of the hole?
I'm still just because I missed so much during Netrunner, and now there's so many games to kind of go back and get into. But some of the first ones were like a niche or big ones that were championed on Shut Up and Sit Down.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It feels like this game really like irradiates you with just like it just hangs on. Like if you haven't been playing the game for a couple of years and you're still here, you still want to hear stories about Netrunner. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's somebody else over there, I think.
Man.
Thanks, Jess.
Jess is putting in work.
Our own 10 malign.
Wow.
That's a reference
Right up close to your face.
to a card no one ever played.
So this isn't exactly a question, or this isn't a story about Netrunner specifically.
That's
but
great.
I was one of those kids that got a Super Nintendo in like 1999, and I've never played Netrunner. And the idea of it was always just incredible, but I didn't have $600 to spend. Would you give me your collection? No. But in honesty, would you recommend someone who's still interested in it, interested in playing over the kitchen table, to find a whole collection?
No.
Or just get the starter set, or just find something new?
The whole collection is like, that's just
No,
intimidating.
do not do that.
No, gosh.
That'd be so much to consume.
But
yeah.
the revised core set is a great thing, great for kitchen tables, I think.
Totally. That like even though there isn't new content getting barfed into the game, like if it's just you and 1 to 4 other people, like you can just surf on the core set and you can definitely pick one up cheap now. And then just like if it still appeals, 3 months from now, grab one expansion and you can just kind of like relive 2012 to 2018 at your own pace. And it's like if you're just playing with other people who haven't really played, the fact that this stuff came out in 2014 versus now kind of doesn't matter, right? And like the that was part of the reason why the game was so bloody good as an experience, is that like the community and the people playing it were awesome, but the game itself is still also really goddamn good.
Yeah.
So that part doesn't change at all.
I still remember, trying to figure out just even the factions of like, but NBN, how can it work?
Right.
I don't understand this, from when you're just playing the core set, and the answer is like, maybe don't have Matrix Analyzer at all.
Yes, strong.
But yeah.
But yeah, like if you can pick it up on the cheap, totally. It's still
Absolutely, yeah.
It's still really, really good.
Yeah, the guys that did say we went in it deep. Like we're looking for news every day. We're discussing cards every day. We're talking about tournaments all the time. Like that isn't something you do with, your copy of Carcassonne or whatever you're using, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do we have any more stories? Oh, there's a couple.
We got 2.
Oh, we got 3. I see 3.
Man.
Oh.
Generating.
Right
I guess
ball.
we didn't
Boom,
cover
boom,
anything,
boom.
guys.
Yeah, I'm Zoe. One of the things I've noticed
It'll do that.
is we were really sad when Netrunner finished, because we've been playing it not from the very first year, but maybe the second from when it started. But we've got friends who had just got the core set, the new one, and they were just as sad as us when they got the news. And it's really weird. We've actually made friends. We've got a very small Netrunner community in England, and we've actually got really good friends from this, just by meeting them randomly in a pub.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
I mean, we crashed during your game night on Tuesday, so...
Yeah. Sorry I couldn't be there.
But yeah, it's just good fun. I mean, we've come across another ocean, and we've still got people we can play, and that's how good the community is. It doesn't matter where you're from, you can find people.
Yeah. There was someone
Thank you
there
very much.
Yeah, we even play with people from Winnipeg.
Lee had a really sad tweet. Like, it was about a week after Netrunner had been announced, and Lee got sent a tweet from someone saying, "Oh wow, just got Netrunner. Seems really good. Do you think it'll consume my life?" It's like, pretty not. I mean, maybe not. Maybe not consume.
You're probably the clear on that one.
Yeah. That's the amount of Thanks.
Oh, hi.
Hey, buddy.
I'm just realizing also that this is the reason why I'm here too. I stumbled into my local comic shop and just off chance saw a copy of the core set, and they were like, "That's supposed to be a really good game." I'm like, "This looks fascinating." So I took it home. Weirdly started listening to Terminal 7, Run Last Click, all these podcasts. Had no idea what you guys were talking about, but just loved the enthusiasm and let it sort of wash
I
over
remember
me.
that.
We couldn't bring much to the table, but we could bring that.
Right? But yeah, and through that found out about Shut Up and Sit Down and started listening to it. And
You're
just,
welcome
and,
again.
Yeah,
Wow.
You're
that's
gonna
what I'm
owe us
hearing.
big time.
That's like $300 I'm now liable to you.
So that's now a huge part
We'll
of my
invoice
life
you
too.
later.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
But I'm curious, and this was the first time I'd ever gone out and done like a little local meetup and done this with a small competition. Did you end up completing your collection? I know you two probably did, but Quinn's, I'm not sure if you...
No, because I stopped playing about a year ago, just sort of like mid to late Mumbad, but I still followed it, and I loved reading about the cards, and I loved listening to Terminal 7, and it was really funny because every episode of Terminal 7 was increasingly like you guys were speaking a foreign language, because you would make references to names and cards I didn't know.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Which pretty wraps up.
I saw one more person over there, and then we can tie this hog.
Oh no, hang on, we have Fantasy Flight's own, or ex-Jonathan Ying. I can't tell if he had a story, if he was just waving to me romantically. He doesn't have a story. Yes, he does have a story.
I think he's holding hotel keys.
So this speaks in.
Oh.
Hello? There we go. Part 2. This speaks in part to a question about whether it was still worth just to pick up like the core set. And I hadn't thought about this in years, but when the original core set came out, I bought it, and I was living in an apartment with no AC in Central Virginia, and it was like 100 degrees, 100 humidity, and I remember sitting down with a friend and being like, man, this game's really good, but it seems like the corporation's really strong because he just beat me like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, but I'm having so much fun, let's swap. And then he proceeded to beat me 3 or 4 times. And it's like the only game I can think of where I could sit down for like 3 hours and consistently lose every game and still feel like I had had a great time.
Yeah, hell yeah. Very good.
I think it's also because both your cards and my cards are like running into each other. Like, so they all shared in the victory in a bit. Like, man, you got me there, and I got you there, and yeah, the story. You're right. Because I lose a lot in Netrunner, and I still enjoy the game.
Let's cap it off with Mr. Ying.
Oh, good. No pressure.
No pressure there.
Yeah.
All pressure.
All on you, Ying.
So, I'm currently wearing my Ken Tenma jacket, which I made for the Fantasy Flight holiday party.
Yes.
Good work.
Big Tenma fan. I'm a big Tenma fan thanks to the fans of Terminal 7, actually.
So, like, the first weekend I was at Fantasy Flight, they actually had a tournament for Honor and Profit as like a big celebration thing. And I didn't have a deck, but I wanted to play. And so Lucas Litzinger gave me his decks and basically piloting his decks. He was like my coach, teaching me the game and being like, okay, now you want to do this. And I won that tournament, which was very fun.
Wow, that's awesome.
And regarding Terminal 7, like, everyone at the office loves what you guys did. We all and I think on the drive after leaving FFG, on the drive to Los Angeles, my partner and I were going, and she was trying to get work done or read books, and so we couldn't listen to any music with lyrics, and we couldn't listen to any podcasts that she'd pay attention to. But we listened to Terminal 7 because it was not English to her. It was just white noise.
Wow.
And I had a great time.
It's like someone reading a dictionary.
A Swahili dictionary.
Yeah.
Well, it's like all of these words are technically English, but they're not arranged in an order that make any coherent sense. But yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
Thank you guys from myself and from FFG.
Aw,
Round of
thanks,
applause for
buddy.
Terminal 7.
Aw. Well, we ain't done yet. If any folks want to come play some Netrunner this weekend, we're gonna be what's the zone? The Toasty Zone.
Oh, a Toasty Fireside free play.
We're gonna find some space over in the Toasty Zone. Basically now. We'll do 4 to 6 today, 10:30 to 12:30 tomorrow, and 1 to 3 on Sunday. We got some of the crazy 1 corporation versus 3 runner weird mud decks. So come find us. If you want to play some games, we'll play some games.
Or bring your cards because we didn't bring ours.
I got mine.
Okay. Oh,
God
nice.
damn it.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you very much for listening to us yammer.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you all very
Y'all
much.
are a delight.
Go backstage again.